Kubo has just revealed some new information about the fate of the Quincy after they die, which changes everything. In this video, I'll be breaking down the latest information which Kubo has released about where Masaki and Kanae Katagiri had gone. This hopefully should explain why neither Ichigo or Uryu had found their mothers within the Soul Society. With Kubo revealing that deceased Quincy's go to another realm, it allows us to speculate about the fate of Masaki as well as Kanae, and then you've got other Quincy like Soken Ishida as well as the fallen Quincy within Yhwach's army. You're definitely going to want to stick around to the very end of the video as I'll be explaining how Mayuri was able to experiment on Soken, why Asnod and Yhwach were afraid of death despite having seen the Soul Society, and what does this new lore about the Quincy mean for the future of the Bleach story? Could it be that behind the scenes Kubo is working hard on the Hell arc where he plans to reveal all of this information that he is teasing to us on his official fan club? So without further delay, let's dive into the topic of the video to find out the answers to all of this information and more, as we dive into what happens to the Quincy when they die. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. On the 3rd of February, in question 733 asked on Kubo's official fan club, a fan had wondered, did Masaki and Kanae go to the Soul Society? And in general, where do deceased Quincy's go? Kubo had responded with a fascinating answer which has had all of us speculating and theorizing for the last 24 hours. Kubo reveals that deceased Quincy's go to a place which is separate from the Soul Society. As is often the case with a lot of answers that Kubo provides, they usually lead to us having even more answers. Some have stated that this separate place from the Soul Society is Mayuri's lab, since he has experimented upon countless Quincy, but jokes aside, this does offer up a possibility of an alternative, exclusive afterlife just for the Quincy. A lot of people are assuming that while deceased Quincy must return back to Yhwach, and this is based off of what Hashwell tells Uryu in chapter 565, where he states that this battle between the Quincy and the Shinigami is for his majesty, that all of these Shinigami as well as the Sternritter who have come into contact with Yhwach's soul will have to offer their souls to him upon their death. No matter who dies in this battle, Yhwach will only get stronger and will only live longer. I do believe that this is a bit of a translation error on Viz Media's part, where they translate the term Tamashi literally to soul, but within Bleach this is often interchangeable with Reishi or spiritual power. We know that Yhwach's ability Ashwalen absorbs Reishi from those who are connected to him, rather than their literal souls. This idea that all who have come into contact with Yhwach's soul will have their souls offered to Yhwach upon their death is debunked when we see Yamamoto, who had a direct confrontation with Yhwach, but then later within the No Breaths from Hell one-shot chapter, we learned that Head Captain Yamamoto's soul was still sent to Hell. So yeah, it's safe to say that the Reishi of the Quincy returns to Yhwach and not the soul itself. So this is what Kubo means when he states that the souls of deceased Quincy go to a place which is separate from the Soul Society, thus explaining why neither Ichigo or Uryu had come across their mothers within the Soul Society. We learned very early on in the series the fate of Masaki. Ichigo, who was only 9 years old at the time, had encountered the Grand Fisher's lure. It had taken the form of a girl who appeared to be about to jump into a river. Ichigo rushed towards the Grand Fisher's lure as Masaki had quickly followed after him, realizing that it was a trap. She had thought that she would have been able to protect him with her Quincy powers, but she was unable to because at that precise moment Yhwach had stolen the powers of all mixed-blooded Quincy. So without her powers, she died while protecting Ichigo against the Grand Fisher. I'd assumed that Masaki had become a part of the Grand Fisher, as I thought that her soul may have been devoured by the Hollow, but it seems as though she was killed and her soul had gone elsewhere. The fate of Kanae Katagiri is even more interesting, and via some anime exclusive scenes within Core 3, it opens up even more questions about what had happened to her. Within chapter 537, we learned that Ryuken and Kanae had ended up marrying and they had given birth to Uryu. So on the day that Masaki died, Kanae Katagiri had lost consciousness and she ended up dying 3 months later, once again due to Yhwach having performed Ashwalen, where he had taken the powers of all of the mixed-blooded Quincy and had made them his own. Within Core 3, via an anime exclusive scene, we see that it wasn't Kanae Katagiri who had immediately fallen ill, it was actually Uryu who was affected by Yhwach's Ashvalan. We know that Uryu possesses the abilities of the antithesis. Maybe this played somewhat of a role where this power was briefly activated by the intervention of his mother so that she could sacrifice herself so that Uryu didn't lose his powers and die, and instead she did. Again, that's another theory, but as far as we know, Kanae Katagiri lost consciousness on the day that Yhwach had performed Ashvalan, and she ended up dying 3 months later. And it was following her death that Ryuken had performed an autopsy on her body and had extracted the Silver of Stillness from her heart. And this was used to create the Still Silver Arrowhead, which Uryu had used at the end of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. There is definitely more information that we're going to be learning about the events of June 17th, where Ashvalan was casted by Yhwach, because at the end of Core 3 we had seen Ryuken and Isshin arrive within Varavelt early after Isshin had met Ryuken at the grave of his late wife. Then you have all of the anime exclusive scenes featuring Soken Ishida's character, like at the beginning of episode 40 where he had wrote a journal with information about the Vandenreich Yhwach and the truth about the death of Uryu's mother. So with this new information about deceased Quincy, we've discussed the fate of Masaki and Kanae, but we do end up seeing the fate of one Quincy who ended up dying in the series, and this was Uryu's grandfather Soken Ishida. As fans are wondering, well, if Quincy go to a separate place from the Soul Society, then how was Mayuri able to get his hands on the souls of Quincy to experiment upon them? The logical answer would be that he would kidnap Quincy who are still alive, but Uryu reveals that Soken Ishida had in fact been killed when he was ambushed by 5 large hollows. We find out that Mayuri had delayed the Shinigami rescue squads from helping Quincy's until they had already died, as was the case with Soken Ishida, as he was dead already for an hour before the Shinigami had gotten to him. And it wasn't just the corpses of the Quincy that Mayuri experimented upon, but it was actually their souls. During the Soul Society arc, Mayuri explained to Uryu that it was difficult work when he had become head of the Research and Development Institute, because Quincy's were already a rare species at that time. Shinigami were monitoring the few that were left, so he had to persuade the Shinigami assigned to watch over them to delay their rescue. Somehow, the Shinigami rescue squads were able to acquire the souls of Quincy and bring them back so that they could be Mayuri's research subjects. Mayuri does speak about how this was very difficult to arrange, so I'm assuming that there must have been a method that Mayuri had to devise to extract the Quincy soul from the corpse before it could pass on to the afterlife, meaning that the Shinigami may have a method to stop the Quincy from moving on and essentially keep them around as prisoners of war in their spirit form. Over the course of the series, the Quincy have been persecuted by the Shinigami. First, you have the battle against the Quincy over 1,000 years ago, where Yhwach had led his Empire of Light against the Soul Society, and this is where the original Gotei 13 had defeated Yhwach's army. At this time, Yhwach was also conquering over Quincy territories, like for example Bazbi's family, who had reigned over a specific area, and they were killed for refusing to join Yhwach's side. And then 200 years from the present timeline, a large majority of the Quincy were exterminated by the Shinigami in order to prevent the collapse of reality. This is revealed within chapter 46 of the manga, and this is because Quincy destroyed the entirety of a hollow, including its soul, whereas Shinigami maintained balance by purifying a hollow's soul and returning it to the Soul Society, thus ensuring that a balance of souls is maintained between the Soul Society and the world of the living. But when large groups of Quincy were exterminating hollows with their souls, then it was serving to threaten the balance of reality, causing the collapse of the worlds. Within the Everything But the Rain flashback arc, we learn about a few surviving Quincy members. We have Masaki from the Kurosaki Quincy family, and then the members of the Ishida family, who include Soken and his wife along with Ryuken, and you also have their maid Kanae Katagiri, who is a mixed-blooded Quincy. The only direct clue about the afterlife of the Quincy that we get is from the character of Asnod, who we know was absolutely terrified of dying. And it was like he didn't know what was going to come next, despite him having seen the Soul Society, which means that he was aware that Quincy do not end up in the Soul Society, which is why he was so scared. Some people have speculated that all Quincy end up in hell, and this is because of their inherent power to destroy souls, which earns them an instant ticket to hell. As of making this video, there are only 2 confirmed ways for a soul to enter hell. The first is that they had committed committed horrible acts while in the world of the living as a human, like committing murder, so for this reason that soul needs to be sent to hell in order to be purified. This is because a Shinigami Zanpakuto can only cleanse sins that a soul has committed as a hollow. The second way is by performing a Konso Reisei 12 years following the death of a captain. This is a ceremony where former captains of the Gotei 13 are sent to hell because their reishi is too dense to be reabsorbed into the Soul Society, so they are sent to hell in order to maintain stability and balance. It is possible that Quincy could be sent to hell, but it's also plausible that Kubo has just expanded upon the cosmology of Bleach by introducing an all-new realm that is exclusive to the souls of the Quincy. This realm probably exists somewhere within the Garganta, or it could even exist within the shadows of the Soul Society in other areas aside from the Serete, like how Yhwach and his army had fled into the shadows of the Serete for over 1,000 years, in a way living alongside the Shinigami without them even knowing. Kubo's answer was very open-ended, and I feel like he's left things vague so that he can expand upon them within Core 4 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. And as with a lot of these mysteries that he's revealing to us within Klub Outside, it seems as though he is definitely planning for a manga continuation of Bleach via the Hell arc. There are so many ideas that he has been hinting at us, like untold backstories, hints about new lore about the Bleach universe, and then all of the information that he's teasing about the history of the Soul King within the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, and then all of the info that was revealed within the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, and then not to forget the shocking revelations of the No Bleeds from Hell one-shot chapter, where we learn that captains are sent to hell after they die. Are we really surprised that Kubo has just revealed that Quincy don't end up in the Soul Society, they go somewhere else? There is so much for fans to speculate and theorize about, as we patiently wait to learn new information, whether if it's via the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, or via Kubo finally announcing that he's going to be continuing the Bleach manga with an all-new story arc. There are some parts of the fandom who are upset with how Kubo goes about writing and building his world, but I don't think that Kubo is to blame. Bleach still has excellent world building, but it isn't spoon-fed to us. I have an entire video where I break down the cosmology of Bleach, and I have said in past videos that the motto of Bleach's writing is if it is hidden, it is the flower. Kubo is very careful and purposeful in what he reveals and doesn't reveal to us. This is because it helps to give direction to the story, instead of having constant flashbacks which veer away from the main plot. I think in general, Kubo likes to keep secrets from his readers so that fans continue to have this intrigue and mystery about his work. But yeah, for now we have reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. I would love to know all of your theories about what happens to the Quincy after they die. Please do watch over this video and let me know all of your thoughts about the various different points that I've discussed through the fate of Masaki, Kanae Kategiri, as well as Soken Ishida, and then all of the fallen Quincy that we know about and the fears of Aznod about the afterlife. I look forward to reading all of your comments, and lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.